Anyway, well, Derek, as you know, you've heard this, maybe you can still hear this.
Barely.
Few industries have had to face up to the combination of pressures and stresses over the past couple of years, like the automotive sector. Some of those wounds have been self-inflicted, of course, but I mean, still think about it. I mean, car makers have had to deal with several massive recalls, scandals involving forging data or hiding information from investigators, and disruption from hybrid, electric, and autonomous vehicles as well. And let's not forget the event that kicked off this uncertain era almost a decade ago. The big three automakers here in the US nearly went bankrupt, necessitating a federal bailout that GM and Chrysler gratefully accepted. Not the Ford Motor Company, though. Very interesting. Although they did agree to accept government loans in exchange for a promise to accelerate development of hybrid and electric vehicles, an agreement that Ford executive and later CEO Mark Fields took seriously. Already at that time, Fields and his team were working on the company's Way Forward concept, which was intended to make Ford leaner in areas of research and development, as well as purchasing and sales. This later became rebranded as the One Ford plan. So, Way Forward to One Ford, really kind of one and the same thing, and an opportunity to make the company leaner, respond to some of the market forces that was affecting profitability at that time. Now, all this is a preamble to the article, Tides of Change at Ford Motor Company. You can see it right there. And it was written by QD contributing editor and content marketing coordinator, Ryan Day. The piece appeared in yesterday's issue of the Quality Digest newsletter. Now, Ryan first went to one of Ford's trend conferences back in 2012, I believe it was 2012, and he and I attended the following year, also known as the business trip from hell. For nothing, the reason's not totally unrelated to Ford. We actually got to Detroit eventually through driving from Chicago at 4 a.m.
Stayed in a Motel 5?
And 4.5. Anyway, that's not germane. It just was an interesting story. In any event, for some time now, we've been following Ford's transformation from an automaker to what Fields frequently called a mobility company. His image of the future of Ford had more to do with Silicon Valley than Detroit, where an automobile was not just a vehicle to take you from point A to point B, but also the hub of an Internet of Things wheel. I mean, if you think about it, that's really what the vision was right. That a car would be a connected device that you'd be able to do everything you'd want from your car, right? And that was kind of the vision. Well, as Ryan showed in his article, the company suffered some huge financial setbacks during the height of the Great Recession, which we referred to with that bailout that they didn't take, but their competitors did. They had a whopping $12.6 billion loss in 2007. Field's predecessor as CEO, Al Mulally, began the turnaround by getting behind Field's Way Forward / One Ford plan to reinvent and reinvigorate the company. When Fields took over as CEO in 2014, the improvement continued apace, and Ford posted a $10.6 billion profit in 2016. It's
a nice turnaround.
Pretty huge turnaround. More than a $20 billion turnaround in the span of less than a decade. It's pretty impressive. Now, I mean, let's be honest. To be sure, excuse me, a lot of that improvement had to do with the fact that global crude oil prices sank from a record high of nearly $100 a barrel in 2008 to less than $50 a barrel today, and they've actually been a heck of a lot lower than that in recent years. And lower oil prices, of course, equal lower gas prices, which of course equal more sales of highly profitable gas guzzlers like Ford's F-150 truck, right? But over these past few years, even as the company began posting impressively profitable performances, and even as the Dow Jones and S&P leaped in value, Ford's stock performance failed to keep pace. As a matter of fact, since the beginning of 2016, again, remember, this is a stock market that's really been booming, Ford's share price is down nearly 20%. Ouch, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense. A company with dozens of billions of dollars of profit, over $10 million in profit, share price sinking. It kind of is a bit of a disconnect. Well, the reason for the lack of sizzle in the market aren't really exactly clear, but they can be guessed at, I think. Sexier competitors like Tesla, for instance, have come out of the scene. And although that company can't show even a fraction of the revenues and profits of Ford, their share price is through the roof. I mean, Elon Musk is a promoter par excellence. And although Tesla doesn't make, I mean, it's true, right? I mean, he really knows how to get media coverage. And although Tesla doesn't make much from its electric cars, much less its futuristic plans for the Hyperloop or the Mars colony, Musk can certainly get the juices flowing for investors. By the way, I read today, just read before we came on the air, that the Hyperloop is actually going to move forward, and in 2012 is going to have a Hyperloop route. I believe it's between
2022, you mean?
2021.
Okay. Because 2012 would be like the way back.
I'm sorry,
machine.
I meant 2021.
They already created it, we just didn't know it.
But yeah, there's going to be a Hyperloop tunnel between, I believe it's Paris and Amsterdam. It's two cities in Europe, which normally has like a 3-hour or 2-hour plane flight. It's going to be like a 20-minute or 30-minute Hyperloop trip now, if they get that done.
If they get it done, yeah.
And Europe's really jumping on that. So anyway, but the result of this is that Mark Fields voluntarily retired just recently last month, and although, you know, considering the history that we've discussed here and what Ryan wrote about, it's clear that he was likely given, as Ryan writes, the golden boot. So yeah, did he retire? Was he kind of pushed out? I don't know. I mean, the moral of the story is that large multinational corporations, whether they're automakers or mobility companies or space explorers or Hyperloop investors, inventors, I mean, they need more than just revenues to carve out a place in the minds of customers and investors. They need messaging, right? That speaks to a wide swath of people and appeals not just to the mundane now, but the mythical future as well. I mean, those that lead such companies are always on the hot seat, because the best of intentions and planning don't always matter if the vision can't be sold and translated into results, both for Main Street dealers and Wall Street trading desks. And that, to me, was the real takeaway here, was in thinking about this, the stock price deal.
Well,
where Ford's a successful company. They offer a nice dividend.
Right.
They should be doing better in the market. Why aren't they? And
well, I heard one reason for that, though, is that shareholders, it's like, well, you're a car company. I don't hear you talking about making cars. You're talking about this mobility. What's mobility? You're a car company. How come you just aren't talking about cars? And I think there has been a hypothesis that has been the problem, is that shareholders just didn't get.
I don't agree with that, because what's Elon Musk talking about? He's not talking about Tesla. He's talking about Mars colony. He's talking about Hyperloop. I mean, he's talking about other things.
But when he does talk about Tesla, he's talking about cars.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you've got other stuff going on, but I think people expect from an auto company to be talking about cars, because Ford is, there's still this vision that Ford, or this idea that Ford is an automobile company. What's a what?
Well, but I mean, yeah, maybe it's messaging, as I'm saying, but maybe also it's just this idea that it's just not sexy enough. It's Ford makes F-150s and cars and Focuses and whatever, but those are hugely profitable things still. I mean, you know, this company just pulled out of the Paris Accords, right? I mean, obviously this country is going to be reliant on carbon-based forms of transportation, and if oil prices stay fairly low, F-150s are going to still be hugely profitable. I would invest in Ford, right? I mean, it's a good bet, but there's some sexiness missing, and that's why I think Fields isn't there anymore.
Well,